Hello there, and welcome back to Remaining Calm through October. 31 days, 31 calming tips, and obviously we're going to be using them way beyond October. You get to use them and revisit them as often as you would like. Well, today we're talking about practicing self-compassion. This is something that we talk about a lot inside Thrivership School, which is my group coaching program. And that is because what I've noticed is as I talk to hundreds and hundreds of breast cancer survivors across the world, and hundreds of women who've been through other trauma, maybe they've been through abuse or loss of a loved one. Maybe you've been through all of those things, right? I know I have. So what I have noticed pretty much across the board is that we have a tendency to be very kind to others and to treat others really well. But when it comes to how we talk to ourselves, specifically in our head, there's some room for improvement, let's say, right? In fact, we came up with a name for this negative voice in your head, because by naming her, it almost helps it take away from it being us in today. This is, and this negative voice in our head, by the way, is something that we've grown up with. Often it's because of we learned to talk to ourselves that way in childhood. Maybe we're told certain things by others. And we've bought into these thoughts. And a thought, a belief, I should say, is just a thought that we keep thinking. So these can be thoughts that, let me give you an idea of what I'm talking about, right? And by the way, we call her Negative Nancy. So these are some things that Negative Nancy might say to you, to give you some examples. Things like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not thin enough. Right? I'm never going to be as successful as others. Oh, they always mess things up. We might say things like, I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid, that was stupid. We might think nobody really likes me. We might be thinking, I'm so ugly, nobody's going to find me attractive. I can't handle this, so weak. I'll never achieve my dreams. It's impossible. I don't deserve to be happy. I can't do anything right. I'm such a failure. Maybe we compare ourselves to others, like, I'll never be as smart or as capable as her. Those phrases and more. I mean, right? We could just keep going and going and going. But what if we called that voice in our head, what if we were to call that voice Negative Nancy? And I mean no disrespect to anybody called Nancy whatsoever. It just kind of flows nicely and it sticks in our head for some reason. So what if we were to call her Negative Nancy? And every time those thoughts came in, those unkind thoughts that you would never say to anybody else, you wouldn't say those to your best friend, right? You wouldn't say those to a child. But for whatever reason, and it comes down to a lot of old stories and people pleasing. And by the way, if we're people pleasers wanting to make everybody else happy, very often we grew up as parent pleasers. And that was my story too. That was 100% where I was. Just wanted to make my parents happy. I wanted them to like me. I wanted them to respect me. I wanted to feel validated and seen by them. And I never felt that way. Never felt that way. So I want you to know that these are human feelings. I don't want you to judge yourself, right? That would be Nancy coming in fast there. Well, hi, Nancy, but no thanks. We don't have to buy into that. And so I'm going to invite you to start speaking to yourself. And you've heard this before, but really start speaking to yourself the way that you would your best friend or a child. And another way to think of this that I find kind of reframes it a little bit is, if you live by this saying that you treat people the way that you would like to be treated. For me, that's one of my unspoken rules in my life. I treat people the way that I would like to be treated. But here's the thing. We have to treat ourselves and speak to ourselves the way that we want others to treat us. Because the way that we treat ourselves, the way that we speak to ourselves, is how we're showing other people to treat us. Let that sink in for a minute and ask yourself, be honest without being judgmental, just observing, being curious. Do you treat yourself the way that you want others to treat you? Or do you have a lot of negative Nancy spinning in your head, beating you up all the time, making you feel like you're not good enough? She hung out in my head for decades and decades. And she still pops in from time to time. And that's okay because we're all human, but I don't let her, she doesn't get a say in my life anymore. She doesn't get a say. And what happens when we start to speak to ourselves with kindness, it actually helps improve our emotional resilience, right? You can imagine how much calmer you would feel if you spoke to yourself the kindness that you would show your best friend or a child, for instance. So start to recognize when Nancy's coming in and hanging out in your head. Recognize how it makes you feel. Don't judge it. Don't judge it. Just be in a place of observation, saying, because I would almost guarantee you that she hangs out in your head much more than you realize. And we don't realize, right? It's like she's there on repeat in her head, saying these things because we haven't yet realized that she's there. And it's in our subconscious, right? These have like been encoded in our subconscious. And it's like, I think of an old record player where the record would get to the end and the arm would lift up automatically and go back to the beginning of the record. I know I'm dating myself here, but for those of you who are close to my age, and I'm 57 as I'm recording this, like, you know exactly what I mean. And that's where these thoughts are, these negative Nancy thoughts. They're on repeat in our head, but they don't have to be. You get to shift that. Again, this is a lot of what we talk about inside Thrivership School, my group coaching program, because it takes time and it takes practice to encode some new thoughts, right? And we call, by the way, just so that you know, we call this more uplifting and kinder voice. We call her positive Pamela, right? So it's a matter of inviting in positive Pamela more often than Nancy. I hope that that makes sense, but understand that this truly does create a calmer and more resilient you. And that's pretty huge. Pretty huge. It's a game changer, in fact. So your calming action of the day is to start practicing self-compassion, right? Noticing when negative Nancy comes and hangs out in your head and just saying to it, hey, Nancy, you can leave now. Because she's not serving you. Trust me, she's not serving you at all. In fact, she's draining your energy, making you feel like garbage. And you're not. You're not. You deserve to treat yourself with the respect and love and care that you treat others. You deserve it too. And I know that even though we've never met, we may never have met, but I know that about you. Like from the bottom of my heart, I know that. Because I know that you matter. And I know that what you want in this world matters. And the way that you speak to yourself matters. Okay. So let's finish up with our action here of putting our left hand on our heart, right hand on top, gently holding your heart, showing it love. And today I think it's important to speak to your 10-year-old self, especially with the topic of the day, thinking about how you used to talk to yourself then. What were the words you were hearing around your home while you were growing up, maybe in school? What thoughts did you start to keep thinking that have been encoded in your brain since that period in time? And you get to uncode them. Cut it out. You don't need it there. So saying to your 10-year-old self, repeat after me, either out loud or in your head. You are loved. You are safe. I've got you. I love you. Have a beautiful, calm day. I'll see you in the next episode. Remember to speak to yourself with kindness. I'll see you next time.